You finally recorded your first podcast. Now what? A lot of people spend so much time thinking about recording the podcast that they never really thinking about what happens after the recording is finished. You have the video, you have the audio. Maybe everything is sitting on an SD card, your phone, your camera, your computer. But now you are probably thinking, okay, what am I supposed to do with this video? Do I need to edit it? Where do I upload it? How do I get on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? Should I put it on YouTube? Should I create clips from it? And when should I start thinking about the next episode? That is what I want to talk about in this video, because recording a podcast is an important step, but it's not the final step. What's going on, family? My name is Terrell Humphrey, founder of Failure is Knowledge. I have produced over 893 podcast episodes, and one of the biggest things I have learned through this process is that a lot happens after you turn the cameras off. When I first got started, there were things I had to learn along the way about recording, editing, organizing files, publishing, creating content, and just building a process that I can continue doing. So if you recently recorded your first podcast, I want to make what happens next a little easier to understand. The first thing I would tell you after recording your first episode is make sure you actually have the recording. I know that sounds simple, but before you start thinking about editing, posting, anything, check everything. Check the camera. Check the audio. Make sure your files are there. Make sure everything saved correctly, and once you know everything is there, organize it. Create a folder for the episode, put the video inside of it, put the audio inside of it, put anything connected to that episode inside of the same folder. This may not seem important when you only have one episode, but once you start recording episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, and start creating clips, graphics, thumbnails, and other content, things can get very, very confusing quickly. So start building that habit early. Once everything is saved and organized, now you can start thinking about editing. And this is where a lot of people ask, do I actually need to edit my podcast? Technically, you can record something and upload it the exact same way you recorded it. But I still recommend reviewing the episode first. Maybe there was a long pause. Maybe you messed up a sentence and started over. Maybe the cameras were rolling before you actually started the episode. Maybe there was something in the conversation that you do not want to include. Maybe there was a technical issue. Those are the type of things you want to look out for. But editing does not mean you have to make yourself sound perfect. You do not have to remove every pause. You do not have to remove every You do not have to make the conversation sound like a robot recorded it. You want it to sound like you. You are just cleaning up the things that take away from the conversation. And that is something I had to learn from producing over 893 podcast episodes. There is a difference between cleaning something up and trying to make everything perfect. You spend too much time trying to make every second perfect, you may end up sitting on the same episode for weeks. So clean up the obvious things and keep moving. If you completely restarted a sentence, you can remove the first part. Okay, I'm gonna just be honest with you. If there is a long sentence that does not need to be there, guess what? Shorten it. If something happened before the episode started, remove it. If there is something private that was not supposed to be included, remove it. But if you said something naturally or had a small pause, that does not automatically mean it has to disappear. Sometimes those moments are what makes the conversation feel real. Once the episode is edited, the next thing you have to do is think about how are you going to package it. Because now you have the actual episode, but you still need the things that go around it. You need a title, you need a description. If you are uploading the video to YouTube, you may need a thumbnail. You need your podcast cover. You may have links that people want to visit. You may have a call to action. And this is why podcasting is more than just pressing record. The recording is the main piece, but there are still other things that help people understand what the episode is about and what they should do after listening and or watching. I would keep this simple. Your title should clearly tell people what the episode is about. Your description should help them understand what they are going to learn. Your thumbnail should be easy to understand. And your call to action should tell them what to do next. Once all of that is ready, now you have to figure out where the podcast is actually going to go live. If you're going to create a podcast audio, you normally need a podcast hosting platform. The hosting platform is where you manage the podcast and upload the audio. Then podcasts can be distributed to different places where people listen. That can include Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast platforms. The first time you set your podcast up, there may be more work involved because you have to create the show itself. You have to add the name. You have to add the description. You have to add the cover, artwork. You have to make sure the information is correct. Then you connect the podcast to different platforms where you want to appear. But after that initial setup, publishing future episodes become easier because you are not creating brand new episodes every time. You are simply adding another episode to the show you already created. Now, if you recorded your podcast on video, I will also think about YouTube because somebody may never go to Spotify and search for you. They may never open up Apple Podcasts and type in your name, but they may go to YouTube and search for that question that you answered during your podcast. That gives you another opportunity to be discovered. This is why your title matters. If your title is vague and nobody understands what the episode is about, you make it harder for people to understand the information. But if you're clearly answering something that your audience is already searching for, your podcast has another opportunity to show up in front of the right person. And once you start thinking about the podcast, that way you realize that the full episode is not the only piece of the content you created. Inside one podcast episode, you may have several small pieces of content. Maybe you answer one question really well in 45 seconds. That can become a short video. Maybe you told a story that can stand by itself. That can become another video. Maybe you explain a mistake you made. That can become a post. Maybe you broke something down step by step. That can become another piece of content. So instead of looking at the podcast as just one video, start looking at the recording as the source. The full episode is one piece. Then you can pull additional pieces from that conversation. But I would not create clips just because you feel like you're supposed to create clips. Make sure the clip still helps somebody when they see it by itself. Once the episode and the additional content are ready, you still have to let people know that your podcast exists. Publishing something does not automatically mean people are going to find you. Start with the people who already know you or on your email list. Share the episode on social media. Send it to your email list if you have one. I didn't know I was going to say that. Put it on your website. If you interviewed a guest, send the episode to them. Make it easy for them to share it. Use some of the short clips to bring people back to the full conversation. And don't feel like you can only talk about an episode on the day you publish it. You can continue creating content from that conversation over time. One thing I have learned is that producing content and promoting content are two different things. You can create a great episode, but if nobody knows it exists, it becomes harder for people to discover it. Now, eventually, the episode is going to be live. And this is another point where people can get distracted. They start refreshing the numbers. They start looking at the views. They start wondering why more people are not watching it. And I think one of the better things you can do after publishing your first episode is look at what you've learned from the process. Your first episode gave you experience. Now you know what recording feels like. You know what took longer than expected. You know what editing feels like. You know what problems came up. You know you want to change. You know what you want to change for the next time. That is valuable. That is actually one of the reasons behind the name Failure is Knowledge. You can think about starting a podcast for months or maybe years. You can watch videos about podcasting. You can buy the equipment. You can write ideas down, but there are some things you are not going to understand until you actually record the episode. Once you do it, now you have something real to learn from. And that is why after your first episode is published, I would not stop. Start thinking about the second episode. This is where consistency begins. You don't want to publish episode 1 and then 2 weeks later start asking yourself, what should you talk about next? Nah. Have another topic ready. Have another question ready. Have another recording date in mind. The more you do this, the more the process starts to become a rhythm. You record, you edit, you prepare everything, you publish, you promote it, then you record it again. And your schedule does not have to look like somebody else's schedule. You do not have to publish every day. You do not have to publish 3 times a week. You need to create something that you can actually continue doing. If 1 episode a week works for you, do that. If 2 episodes a week, a month works better, do that. The goal is not to create a schedule that sounds impressive. The goal is to create a schedule you can maintain. Now, after hearing everything that happens after the recording, you may be thinking this sounds like a lot. And it depends on how you want to manage your podcast. It can be. You can absolutely learn how to do all this stuff by yourself. You can learn how to record. You can learn how to edit. You can create your graphics. You can publish your podcast. You can create your clips. You can manage everything. There's nothing wrong with that. The question is whether you want to spend your time learning and managing every part of the production process. Some people enjoy doing all of it. Other people mainly want to sit down, record the conversation, share their knowledge, and let somebody else handle the production side. That is one of the reasons Failure is Knowledge focus on implementation. We help business owners with the actual recording, editing, producing, and publishing. Because sometimes the problem is not that somebody does not have an idea for a podcast. They have been thinking about it for a long time. They know what to talk about. They know what they want to talk about. They just don't want to figure out every technical step by themselves. So whether you're doing it by yourself or get help, the important thing is that knowing what happens after you record. Save the files, organize everything, review and edit the episode, prepare your title, description, thumbnail, and other information, publish it, get it distributed, create additional content from it, promote it, learn from the process, then start getting ready for the next episode. And there are a few mistakes I would try to avoid along the way. Do not let recording sit on your computer for a month because you keep saying you would get to it later. Do not spend weeks trying to make the first episode perfect. Do not publish the first episode without thinking about what comes next. Do not overlook all the additional content that may already be inside the conversation. And do not create a complicated process that you do not want to continue doing it. If I was starting from zero today, I would keep the entire process simple as possible. I will focus on getting the first episode recorded. I will make sure the audio and video were good enough to represent me well. I would edit what actually needed to be edited. I would not spend forever trying to make it perfect. I would get the podcast properly set up. I will publish the episode. I will pull additional useful content from it. And before that first episode even had time to sit there, I would already be thinking about what I was going to record next. Because recording your first podcast is not the finish line. It's really the beginning of the process. You still have to take that recording and turn into something people can actually watch, listen to, discover, and learn from. And every time you go through that process, you get better at it. If you've been thinking about launching your podcast and you're ready to stop putting it off, schedule a free 15-minute podcast strategy call with us. We'll talk about where you are right now, what you are looking to create, and how we can help you record, edit, produce, and publish your podcast. You can schedule your free 15-minute podcast strategy call using the link in the description below. If you're not ready for a call yet, I've also included a free podcast launch checklist in the description to help you get started. And if you have already recorded your first episode, the next thing you need to figure out is how to stay consistent with your podcast. That is what I will watch next. How to stay consistent with your podcast. Until next time, don't be afraid to fail, because failure is knowledge.